Oh, yes.
What is it, darling?
Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit different. It's not fashion based, so it won't necessarily be for everybody, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my two dogs. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see them occasionally on there, and they are a massive part of my life. And it is actually 8 years ago that I rehomed Eddie, so it's sort of his birthday, as it were. So yeah, I thought I would make a video just talking you through a little bit about my two pooches, where I rehomed them from, how it sort of happened, and a little bit of an insight into my life with two crazy Jack Russells. Although I say they're crazy, they're not actually. As you can see, they are the most chilled out dogs in the world, and I am so lucky to have them. But yeah, here we go. Here's me and my life with Eddie and Gus. So I'd known my whole life that I wanted a dog. I absolutely adored dogs. I didn't necessarily grow up around dogs. My grandma had one called Sally, who I absolutely adored, and I adored her so much that I would lie in her basket with her. Oh, I wanted to walk her, I wanted to brush her, I wanted to just be with her every single minute. So I always knew that when I grew up I wanted to own a dog. I wasn't able to have one as a child because both my parents worked full time, and that is a big consideration if you're going to have a dog. It's not fair to leave them at home on their own. And I'd always known that I was going to rescue a dog. I knew that I didn't want a puppy, I didn't want to buy a dog. I wanted to give a dog who didn't have a home. And there are so many of them out there that need rehoming, and so I knew straight away that that's what I wanted to do. Our first dog that we got was Eddie, and I was actually with my ex when I got both the dogs. Now that we're not together, I actually keep the dogs myself. I look after them, they live with me, and that's the way it's going to stay. But yeah, I was with my ex, and we had a big enough house, really big garden. It was nice and secure. It was in a really good location with a big park and play area nearby. And so we started looking into trying to rehome a dog. Now the tricky thing is, if you want to go through the normal rehoming channels like the RSPCA or PDSA, all of those places who do amazing work, places like Battersea Dogs Home, they do have a lot of criteria that you have to fill, and there is reasons for this, and one of them is that you can't really have a full-time job. Now at the time, both me and my partner had full-time jobs. However, my job was close enough that I was able to come home every lunchtime, and also he was in a position where he could take a dog to work some of the week. However, they don't necessarily take that into consideration, and so as much as we were desperate to have a dog and we would have given a dog a really loving home, we couldn't go down the usual routes for our first rescue dog. So I actually ended up browsing the ads on Gumtree. So if you don't live in the UK, Gumtree is like a classified website. It's essentially like ads listing things for sale and whatnot, and you do get pets on there that need rehoming. And I spotted an advert, and it was like an essay for this little Jack Russell who was living with a family in Essex, and was a little poorly fella, and they had another two Jack Russells, and they'd always wanted a third. Look how much hair you're molting! And so they'd rehomed Eddie from a rehoming centre, but unfortunately after a few months Eddie just wasn't getting on with their other two Jack Russells. Their other two Jack Russells were younger females. Eddie is a male, and these other two Jack Russells were trying to groom him, lick him and whatnot, and he just was not liking it, and he was starting to lose his temper, and they were starting to lose their temper, And as this family had kids, they were worried about the dogs arguing and the kids maybe getting stuck in the middle. So they didn't want to put him back into the rehoming centre, and so they listed him on Gumtree with this big long diatribe about how many health problems he had and how he couldn't hear properly and how he had allergies and this and that. Did it put me off? No. One thing you will learn about me is I love a charity case. I would rehome every old, decrepit and ill dog in the UK if I could. Anyway, we went to see little Eddie at this family's house, and bless his heart, in the middle of absolute chaos in this house, 3 children, 2 Jack Russells barking their heads off, Eddie came and sat on the sofa next to me and my partner and fell asleep in the midst of the chaos. And we just knew. He was so chilled out, so cute. They believed him to be around 7 or 8, they weren't sure. He had been dumped at the rehoming centre. So yeah, a few days later we returned and we collected Eddie. But I was so excited. I remember the journey home, I sat in the back of the car with him, and I'd waited my entire life to own a dog. There was fear, like, oh my God, I'm now responsible for this living thing. But I was so excited. And we got him home, and we'd prepared already, so there's a few things that you would need to do and prepare before you were to rehome a dog. A lot of them we'd already done in choosing the house. So you need a secure garden, you need a big enough space for them to exercise, you need to work out where they're going to stay at night, and we had a great utility room where his bed could be and whatnot. We'd bought him a bed and a lead and a collar, and they gave us the food that he liked. And when we got back to our house, he had a little wander around, sniffed everywhere, had to sort of sniff out his surroundings, wasn't interested in the stairs, didn't want to go upstairs. Lay down on his bed that we bought for him and went to sleep. And we were so lucky, he settled in so easily, and that doesn't often happen with rescue dogs. A lot of rescue dogs do come with behavioural problems, but Eddie didn't really. He came with a lot of health problems, but not so much behavioural problems. As I said, he had a lot of health problems. So when we rehomed him, he had a lot of fur missing from his belly, and he had fur missing from his ears, and he had a really bad ear infection, so bad that he couldn't shake his head. So the first thing that we did was we found a vet, and we took him to the vets. We had him all checked over. They started him on lots of antibiotics and things, and that is ongoing. He still has a problem with his ears, and he still has a problem with his skin, but the improvement was pretty fast from taking him in. So that's one of the first things I would say you want to do, is you want to find yourself a vet, and a vet that you really trust, and stick with them. We're still with the same vet, even though we've moved house now. We still go all the way back to our old vets because we just love them there, we trust them, and they've given Eddie such good care over the years. So one of the downsides of him being a rescue is we have no idea how old he is. So although I say he celebrates his birthday yesterday, that is actually his rehoming day. So that is the day that we brought him home. So 8 years ago we brought Eddie home, and as I said, they guessed somewhere between 7 and 8 when we rehomed him. So he's either 15 or 16 years old. So for a Jack Russell, Terrier's average age tends to be around 15. So yes, yeah. So he is in the latter part of his life. As I said, he costs quite a lot of money. So one of the other things we did pretty quickly was insure him. It's really important to insure your dog. He was already microchipped, so we didn't have to do that. But we have used the insurance a lot. He's had a lot of things done, a lot of operations. Those people who followed me on Instagram for a long time might know that last year, around this time last year, maybe a bit later, he did get very, very poorly, and he was unable to walk very well, and there was a chance that we were going to have to make the decision to put him down. And that is a decision that obviously I know is coming because he is an older dog. But thankfully, after some treatment, he bounced back miraculously, and it's a year later and he is still alive and kicking. But that's kind of why when he had his birthday this year, or his rehoming birthday, I decided to throw a bit of a party, didn't I? So we had a party and I made dog biscuits and dog cakes that were safe for him to eat, and I had my friends round, and I love the fact that my friends just embrace my nuttiness of throwing a party for a dog. But I don't know how many birthdays Eddie will now see, and so I just want to enjoy him while I have him, and so I thought it was nice to treat him to a little bit of a celebration. So it was today. So this is why he looks a little bit exhausted, because there was kids here running around, and he's eating all sorts of treats and things, so I think he's quite tired out. So obviously Eddie is a massive part of my life and has been for the last 8 years, mine and my ex's life, and he was at our wedding. It was a bit of a surprise. He turned up with the rings tied to a little jacket that he was wearing, and we had a couple of pictures with him before he got taken back to the dog sitter. But that was lovely. That was actually the moment on my wedding day that made me cry. No others, just that one. But yeah, he's such a little character. He's quite deaf, so he doesn't really hear you when you come in the front door, bless him. And we'd read a lot about how if you got a younger dog, that kind of livened up the older dog. We decided, once I left my full-time job and I was working from home, that we would rehome another dog, that we would get a younger dog, and hopefully that would help keep Eddie young. It would be company for him, and when the sad day came that Eddie wasn't around anymore, we would obviously still have this other dog, and that's when we got Gus. So 3 years ago we found Gus, and we had started actively looking for another dog. We knew that we wanted a dog that was younger than Eddie, but not too young, so we were looking at above 3. As much as I love Eddie, Eddie is, or was, a very aloof dog. Eddie would like to sit on the sofa next to me, but didn't want to sit on my knee or anything, just wanted to sit on the sofa. And I really wanted a dog that wanted to be cuddled, that was like a bit of a, not a lap dog, but you know, one that liked being cuddled and kissed and whatnot. A dog came up on his Facebook feed from an Essex rehoming group, and again, it wasn't one of the bigger groups. It was a group run by a lady, all based on charity donations. She used to run it from her own home, and she posted a picture of Gus, and we just fell in love, and he just looked so cute, and the description of him was that he was very laid back, very chilled. Because one of the things about Eddie is very chilled. He doesn't bark. He's not really very Jack Russell-like at all. He doesn't chase balls. He's not interested in toys unless they're edible. He said that he was really affectionate, that he was really chilled out, and was a small type dog. So we had to be home checked. They sent out somebody to home check our house and check that our situation was okay. Which obviously we'd not had with Eddie because we rehomed directly from a family, but we passed the home check, and I remember being so excited when they rang and said that we'd been okayed to adopt Gus. I was so excited. We had to pay a fee of £150, and we actually had to meet on neutral ground with the rehoming lady, and she brought Gus and we took Eddie, and the idea was we would have a little dog walk, we'd get to know Gus and see if the two of them got on, and we would obviously decide if we were, going to go ahead. And I remember when she first opened the door to the car and Gus jumped out, I was like, who is this dog? Because he was fat. Like, he was overweight, and his bum was so chunky, he looked a bit like a staffy. He looked much bigger than his picture. And I remember saying to my partner at the time, I'm not sure about him at all. And we took him for a little walk, and he seemed really cute. And the two of them, they got on okay. There was no bickering or anything. But I really wasn't sure, and we decided that we would take him home for a week. And so we took him home. Now, those people who followed my stories for a long time on Instagram will remember that period when we just rehomed Gus, because I cried on stories a few times because I was really worried that we'd made a mistake. Eddie didn't seem to like him at home. Eddie would avoid him, walk in a big, huge arc to avoid Gus in the garden. And Gus just didn't settle. He wasn't affectionate. He was quite aloof at night. He would go and sit in the kitchen on his own, and I would go in and see what he was doing, and he was just sitting on his own. And I just panicked that I'd done a really, really wrong thing, that I'd really messed up this easy, nice situation that we had with Eddie, and that I'd upset Eddie's life. And for a bit I did think about taking Gus back and not keeping him. And it turned out that Gus needed to be neutered, and I think that's the point at which my feelings flipped, because first of all they told me that he was quite overweight, and so I knew that if I got him to lose the weight he would sort of, shrink down a bit. And also everybody at the vets just cooed over him. Oh, how cute he is, isn't he gorgeous? And I think it made me think more fondly towards him. And then after his operation, when I had to bring him home and he was all dopey and recovering, after that I think that's when me and him really bonded, and he started to become a lot more affectionate. And I think those early days of him hiding in the kitchen were just, because he didn't know what was going on. He'd been in another rehoming place. We were his third home. He was only 5 years old, and it must have been so scary for him. But yeah, things just changed, and he became such an affectionate dog, and he became such a mummy's boy. And the thing is, dogs do tend to bond with the person that's feeding them and walking them, and that was me, because I worked from home. And so ultimately the bond then sort of happened, and now you're very cuddly, aren't you? Yeah. And so, God, it breaks my heart now when I think that I nearly didn't keep him, because he literally has been the most wonderful addition to my life. And okay, some dogs love each other. I don't think Eddie and Gus love each other. I think that they like each other, and they definitely tolerate each other. In the early days, they did used to bicker at dinner time. If Gus would finish his food first, which ultimately he does because he eats so fast, if he then went near to Eddie, Eddie would growl at him. So to begin with, we used to have to feed them quite far apart and with a fence. So we used to fence off Eddie so that Eddie could eat in peace. Gradually we moved them closer and closer together, because Gus eventually learned, once Eddie had snapped at him 2 or 3 times, not to go over, and now they feed right next to each other and there's not a problem. I think we've been really lucky with Gus in that he is so chilled out. With Eddie and all dogs generally, like on the green when I walk him, he's not bothered by anything. A dog can jump on his head and he's so laid back. Again, he's not really a barker. Sometimes I feel sorry for him because Eddie's so deaf. Eddie does follow Gus around because he knows that Gus can hear better than he can. So Eddie wants to be everywhere that Gus is, sits in the same bed as him, even to the point where he will sit on top of Gus, follows him around, constantly sniffing Gus to make sure Gus hasn't had any food that Eddie's missed out on. But it really has livened up Eddie. Eddie now eats his food really quick. He's there at the front door when I get home because he sees Gus move, so he moves. And I do think that it's really made Eddie feel a lot younger, and it's been really, really nice company for him. It's also made Eddie a lot cuddlier. Eddie sees Gus getting cuddles and sitting on my knee, and so Eddie now does like to sit a lot closer. But yeah, Gus was just such a wonderful addition, and much more like a dog. So he's obsessed with balls, always wants to be chasing a ball, loves to play, and is such an affectionate and happy little dog. And yeah, again, we just really, really lucked out with adopting him. Eddie is on quite a lot of medication. I have to give him medication every day with his breakfast and with his meal in the evening. Eddie becomes a bit of a pest around about 4 o'clock. From about 4 o'clock, Eddie starts pacing in and out because he wants his tea. And it can become a little bit stressful when you can hear the feet on the wood, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Keeps peering in to see if it's tea time yet. And my God, if you say the word tea, the two of them just go T and the W word. And the two of them, well, Gus especially goes nuts. Eddie doesn't understand why Gus is going nuts. So he just sort of watches him and he sort of sometimes joins in with the jumping around, but I'm sure he doesn't really understand why Gus is jumping around. So yeah, so I've had Gus now for 3 years. So he was around about 5 when we rehomed him. So he's around about 8 now, which actually, like I said, over 7, they count that as a senior dog. But, you know, he's still very, very puppy-like. He's got so much energy, much more than Eddie. So because of Eddie's leg problems, I only walk Eddie twice a week. That's all he can manage. He can only really manage 10 minutes. I mean, the realities of owning a dog are, there are some downsides. As you've seen, even when I'm just stroking Eddie, Eddie is going through a molt at the moment. I think he's shedding his winter coat, so every time you stroke him, 10 ton of hair is coming off. So my house is always covered in dog hair. When my parents come, they leave covered in dog hair. Gus has quite a long coat. I have to brush it and groom it. It started to become quite costly to take into the groomers. So I now do it myself. I bought some clippers and I clip Gus myself. I obviously have to bath both of them as well. Eddie had a bath this week for his birthday, and he has special shampoo that helps his skin condition. And yeah, you know, you have to walk them, you have to go out with them, you have to pick up poo. That's the nature of being a dog owner. And it can be tying to your lifestyle. So obviously with 2 dogs, especially now that I'm single, I'm not with my partner anymore, it's just me looking after them. And so it's really important to have a sort of system. And I actually have 2 dog sitters. So I have one dog sitter that they go to when I go away on holiday, and she looks after them in her own home for the whole week. She knows Eddie, she knows his medication, and so I found somebody who I trust and who the dogs really, really like. And I also have another dog sitter who comes into the house. So if I go to London for the day to shoot a client, he will come in, he will let them out, he will take Gus for a walk. So yeah, they can be a restriction. You know, you have to think about how long you're going out of the house for, when you're going to be back, do you need to book a dog sitter? But the rewards are, you know, unbelievable. Like the company, I adore coming down first thing in the morning and you see how excited they are to see you, or when you come home from being out. It is nice, especially when you live on your own. And watching Gus on the village green and his ears bouncing up and down never fails to cheer me up. So, you know, as long as I have Gus, I think I will always have something to smile about. Eddie just makes me laugh. He likes to sleep under a blanket, and every so often when he reappears from underneath the blanket will arrange on him in some incredibly amusing shapes. We've had everything from the Virgin Mary to Lawrence of Arabia, and I have them all in my phone. I take pictures of them and they make me laugh. I couldn't have a house now that didn't have dogs in it. Obviously when I meet somebody new, they're going to have to accept the fact that I have 2 dogs. That is just the way it is, and hopefully they'll love them as much as I do. But yeah, as a single girl, I probably wouldn't have got 2 rescue dogs. However, I would not give them up for the world. So they will stay with me as long as they are on this planet, because yeah, they're my babies. So as I said, both of my dogs are rescue dogs, and actually today, the day that the video goes live, Sunday, I am actually in London watching my amazing friend Emma run the London Marathon in aid of Dogs Trust. So Dogs Trust is a charity that helps dogs, rehomes dogs, finds them new homes, and they never put a healthy dog down. And she is going to run the London Marathon, and I can't believe it. I'm so flipping proud of her. I can't wait to cheer her on. But what I want you guys to do, if you can spare even just £1 to donate to her Just Giving page, because all the money will go to Dogs Trust and it will help dogs like Eddie and Gus find really, really good homes. So please, please, the link is in the description box. If you can spare any money to donate to Emma's Just Giving, please do. So I hope you enjoyed just hearing a little bit more about my little fur babies. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and do subscribe. All my videos won't be about dogs, I promise, but I really did just want to share these two with you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye. Today's video is a... Thank you. Hello. Both having cuddle. Eddie looks well unimpressed. No, don't go away. Oh, he brought a ball with you. You've given up, Eddie, haven't you?